Alrighty, so we're gathered here today to discuss Soul Archetypes. It's the kind of reading I normally do. It was the first, I miss you too, Melissa. It was the first thing I started to get into in the metaphysics. I'll tell you the story, like how I got there. So when I was little, baby actually, I came home to my beautiful baby room and I started, my parents started to see that my toys were moving around the room, things like that. They thought that one of my figurines, which was the Lion King, of course, Tay the Lion Queen, started ending up right above my crib. And it was too heavy. I could have pulled it down on myself, which was a danger. My parents started blaming each other. They started to think that they were doing it because my dad had got me the figurine. And then when they figured out that neither of them were doing it, they were like, oh, her room must be haunted, which at the time, my parents weren't into any of the metaphysics or anything like that, so it was kind of a terrifying thing. So they kind of let it go, and as I got older, I started talking about a beautiful white woman that would follow me around and play with me and teach me things. And my mom just thought it was an imaginary friend. But around the time I turned 13 or 14, I kept talking about her and how she taught me so much stuff. Backtracking a little bit, if anybody knows me on here, they know that I have synesthesia, which is the dissociation of senses. Mine happens to be my sight and my sound. So my sight is my sound, basically. So I hear colors and I see sounds. People's voices are colors for me. So as a little kid, I had problems with talking to people, with being around people. It was really hard for me to listen to loud noises because they were a lot of color. And so Western medicine, science, called what I had synesthesia. They said that I was on the autism spectrum because I really did not like to be around people. So speeding forward, going back to about 13, when my parents finally started to think that Lucy wasn't just this ghost, they asked me about her. They asked me like what she helped me with, and when I told her that she helped me basically with talking to people, with communicating with them. And how she did this was, I always thought it was part of my synesthesia because I'd been told that I saw things differently as a child, that I thought that it was just part of all of that, but I see a white shadow in people's irises. And that white shadow, Lucy told me, was basically a cheat sheet to what universe they're from, what their soul is like, what their base characteristics are. So as I got older, my parents helped me harness that ability and talk to me about it more. And we kind of set up, me and Lucy, we set up a kind of flow chart of what they were. And we came to my conclusion was I based them on the Greek gods. So that's about Lucy. She's my spirit guide. She taught me all of this. She's always with me. She's always teaching me things. So let's go to the gods. So what are archetypes? Archetypes are characterized energies or things that humans can associate with, like are human-like, but they are godly. They are bigger energies than ourselves. So a human isn't an archetype because a human is a soul. We are very complex. We live hundreds of thousands of lives. We have our own individual traits. An archetype is more like a overarching energy. So let's go to the zodiac because everybody knows about the zodiac. A zodiac is an archetype. So I'm a Libra. That means that I seek balance in all things. We are the scales. I am a perfectionist. I'm very vain, which a lot of people know. I value those things, but that's an overarching energy. So I have friends that are Libras. They're not the exact same as me because they are the Libra archetype, but they aren't the Libra person. They aren't Tay, right? So an archetype on a bigger scale is a polytheistic god. polytheistic god represents an energy. They're the god of, or the goddess of. And when I was little, I was obsessed with the Greek gods. So my mind went straight to the Greeks. So most people know the Greek gods. If not, just ask a little question on the screen there. So let's go to Athena, because a lot of people know Athena, just as a basis of an archetype. So the archetype of Athena is intelligence. She's the goddess of war and war strategy. She's the goddess of knowledge. She's the basically patron of democracy, so like Athens, Greece. And that is her archetype. Just like Apollo is the archetype of the sun, the archetype of light. He's the god of light. So that's what archetypes are. Basically, the way that I view things and the way that I set up the world, the way I set up my spirituality, is that we have Great Spirit, which is the all in some cultures, which is God in some cultures, the overarching, non-archetypal, everything God. I call it Great Spirit. And that is what started everything. That was the creation of everything. And Great Spirit is every single archetype, every single soul, every atom, every molecule, every plant, everything. And Great Spirit, because it's in everything and is everything, created 13 to 12, but there's 13 actually, archetypes, which are what I view as gods. And when you look at polytheistic cultures, these people recognize those archetypes. They recognize them in other people. That's why we have polytheism. That's why we have all of these beautiful spiritualities. So the gods are the second wave. So we have Great Spirit up here, creating fractals, if you know that metaphysical term, fractals of itself, and each fractal is an archetype. And then if you look at each archetype, the fractals, if we go up here, a god, so let's start with Artemis. I'm an Artemis, if anybody knows me. Artemis created fractals of herself to create souls, which are what we are. So what I see, the shadow in people's eyes, where I can identify you as, is basically your Great Spirit. You are the fractal of that god or goddess, that archetype, and that is where your soul was born. So what this means, where your soul is born, picture a new, beautiful soul as a completely blank slate. It comes from Great Spirit, because Great Spirit creates everything, but Great Spirit is also a benevolent, beautiful thing, and wouldn't put us as souls on the ground to just suffer and have nothing to be based on, no home. So it created the archetypes, the gods, the goddesses, to almost protect us and give them their best qualities and their worst as a challenge, to have our home, to have a mother or father archetype. So my mother or father archetype, my archetype, is an Artemis. So Artemis was the goddess of the moon, the goddess of the dark. She was the patron goddess of women, of childbirth, and most of you will know Artemises. Artemises are extremely loyal. They're extremely courageous. We're a bit bullheaded because we are very emotional. We're very feeling, and we're a very social sign. But that's basically, my soul is Tay, but my archetype is Artemis. And if we look at that blank slate, we start out in our archetype universe. We start out as the baby of an Artemis, let's say, for me. And every life I live, I get to be exposed to new worlds, new people, different archetypes of the 13, different souls. So my mom and my dad. My mom is an Athena, and my dad is a Demeter. So their archetypal energy, my mom, Leslie, my dad, Buddy, their energy has changed my energy. So the way a soul is, it's like sedimentary rock. So every life we live, every experience we have, every energy we take in, even just strangers at work, that's why they affect us so much, is they layer upon layer upon layer our souls to create who we are. So everything up until this point created your mountain, your Grand Canyon of your soul. And if you could look at it from the outside, like Great Spirit can or the gods can, you would see every layer happening all at once to create the way we rise, ascension. So, what's the point of this? What's the point of archetypes? It's basically to understand all the sides of yourself. So, knowing your archetype, knowing that I am an Artemis, which I'll get more into all of the archetypes later, don't worry. Well, knowing that I am an Artemis, I know that I have good traits and bad traits that come from my mother archetype, from Artemis herself. I am extremely loyal to the point of almost detriment most of the time. I have extreme courage. I do well in dark situations because I am the goddess of night. But Artemis is also known to fly off the handle a few times. She is extremely emotional because she connects so fully with people. She loves her family. She loves her tribe, as we Artemises call it. And so the darkness of Artemis is that. It's that trying to fit in, trying to keep everyone together, trying to keep everyone safe. And Artemises tend to put on masks, tend to not be themselves so that they can be there for others. So to this, understanding your path and basing it on that original soul archetype. So the point of knowing the archetypes, the point of the archetypes is not to be an Artemis. I'm not supposed to just be an Artemis. I was raised by an Athena and a Demeter for a reason. I know that the goal is to keep growing and to keep raising those layers, to keep trying to reach for the sun, basically. We are here to experience life. We're here to experience other people, to experience other energies, other archetypes. And the point is to master yours, to stop giving into the BS of yours, and to keep moving forward, to keep seeing that next step. So that next step could be a new archetype. So I could be like ascending into an Athena. You could be mastering your own and then going back and helping others, things like that. Some of the archetypes do better with those things. But the point is to move through the challenges that you are given through your archetype, because baby archetypes, baby people who have not lived that long, who are continually in their dark side, pretty much, their shadow self of your archetype, can't move anywhere. So, perfect example for an Artemis. Artemis's dark side is self-harm, very self-destructive tendencies, drug use, manipulation, darkness. When you think of a dark queen, that is what an Artemis is. And if you stay in that, you stay a drug addict, you stay a user, you stay a self-harmer, you stay a manipulator. And same with all the other archetypes, which I'll get into for you guys. But that is the main point of this, is to listen to yourself and to learn enough about yourself to keep moving forward. So, does anyone have any questions right now? All right. So, we'll move into the archetypes a bit. The main ones are the main ones of the pantheon. So, basically, we'll start with Aphrodite. We'll start in alphabetical order. So, Aphrodite, she's also known as Venus in the Roman mythology. She's the goddess of love, sex, and beauty in Greek mythology. She's the divine female. She's the most beautiful of all the goddesses. And she represents pure love and pure light. So basically, the main power of Aphrodite's is their undying love for humanity, of people, and that light that they bring. So a lot of you metaphysical people will know what the divine feminine is. So the divine feminine is Aphrodite. That is the archetype, and that is what the Aphrodite energy gives us. So you'll find after all of this that all of the archetypes give us all of our values, and the way we use those things is basically adapting to what that archetype would do. So, the value that our Aphrodite gives us is pure divine feminine. So the divine feminine is pure love, passivity, peace. It is that deep, inherent, like Zen that people can get. if Jesus was an archetype, and if I could see Jesus, he would be an Aphrodite, because he represents pure love, pure light, and that Christianity sense is based on an Aphrodite philosophy of peace, love, and kindness. Now, the dark side of Aphrodites, the thing that they struggle with the most. First, I have noticed that they are either the most beautiful people you have ever met in your whole life, like supermodel beautiful. I can say this because my sister is an Aphrodite. She's beautiful. Or they're people who face deformities or challenges and have a lot of self-consciousness about their beauty. And this makes them very insecure. Even if they're beautiful, even if they don't have any deformities, they are extremely insecure people about their personalities, about their vision of themselves. So they can also be the typical battered woman. They can be extremely passive. They can let people walk all over them. And because they do this, and because they're really these warrior, beautiful love queens inside, they become petty and mean, and they can be extremely vile people to be around when they get that point. So if you feel like you're an Aphrodite, if you feel like you know one, they need to know that they are the goddess of love, that they are that goddess of beauty and the divine feminine, and they need to reach inside themselves and discover that feminine. Because all of you women out there, all of you men even, who are essentially learning about the divine masculine and feminine especially, Aphrodites are the ones that give us this. They are the ones that gave us this gift of the divine masculine and feminine. And they are the ones that will bring us forward in the divine feminine, if they can help other people, if they can show us the way it is. So on the second one, Aries. Aries is Aphrodite's love, her paramour. He's the god of war. He's known as Mars in Roman mythology. He's really in the mythologies, and truthfully, most of you Marses out there, you're just big brute soldiers. You're amazing men. You have the divine masculine within you, but they need something to protect. They need something to be loyal to. As Mars and Aries himself was in the mythology, he was the god of war. He was the divine masculine. And he was extremely brutish and hard-headed most of the time, except for when it came to Aphrodite, because they're mates, they're true loves. They complete each other, just as the divine masculine and divine feminine do, just as yin and yang do. Where Aries' positive traits are going to be ambition and loyal. His negative traits, they can be extremely aggressive, they can be extremely hateful, they can follow blindly. So if you think of the soldier mentality, that would be Aries fit beautifully into soldier roles. When they ascend a bit, they become generals. They become the master of war. And they are the divine masculine. They are ambition, aggression. They are that wholesome emotion. Most people think that women are emotional. In the divine masculine and feminine, the masculine is the emotional one. The divine feminine is the passive, the reflective one. Men are extremely emotional. That's what makes them so messed up all the time, because they want to be emotional. They want to express themselves, but culture and truthfully the divine feminine will push them down. And what they've been tricked into is that men aren't supposed to be emotional. But Aries himself charged into war off of his emotions. He protected Aphrodite, he protected his family, his brothers and sisters, based on his emotions. And that's that beautiful thing about Aries, is that once you have them, once you have their loyalty and devotion, they'll never give it up. So next is Apollo. Apollos are the god of the sun. They are one of the two twins. So Apollo and Artemis are the only twins of the pantheon of gods, the sun and the moon. In other mythologies, they're either twins or they are soulmates, eternally in love with each other. Apollo is the god of the sun, but he's also the god of prophecy and healing. Apollos are the most beautiful people, other than Aphrodite, is beautiful in a different way. where Aphrodite and Aries are the duality of masculine and feminine. Apollo and Artemis are the duality of social and tribalism, so family, because they are family. Apollo is that lighter side, the healing, the prophecy. Apollos are extremely attractive people because they are the light side of social. They are going to be the most famous people you've ever met, like Ellen DeGeneres is an Apollo. Marilyn Monroe was one of the biggest Apollos I've ever seen. And when you look at Marilyn Monroe, I'm a Marilyn Monroe freak, people. She was not a real person. Marilyn Monroe was a pseudonym. It was not her real name. Her real name was Norma Jean. And Apollos and Artemises, the social sign, are torn in half. They're twins. They were literally torn in half to be created. And because of this, their downfall is that second half. So they're always two people. They're always looking towards which of their people can they put in front of you so that this one can't be noticed. And that's where everyone gets it from you. Everyone will turn on that vulnerability, will turn on that like sadness within themselves to hide from other people. And that's where we get it from. It's from the twins. Apollo is the light bringer, so Apollos will bring you the biggest joy you have ever experienced in your life. They are happy, happy people who are extremely sad inside and lonely. They can be fake and superficial for their downside, and they can be extremely active until they're not, because they're always on. On the other side, Artemises, I've talked a little about them because I am an Artemis. She was the goddess of the moon, of darkness, and of women. The positive traits of Artemises are extremely courageous. They are those badass women that you want to know but are a little scared to be around. I know this from personal experience. Where Apollos are the light bringer, the one that people can approach. Artemises, their sisters, are the ones where people approach them at their own risk, kind of thing. And where Apollo's dark side is really his light, where he really wants to be soft and quiet, Artemises are the optimists on the inside. Artemises are extremely emotional, and if you get them to be anywhere near vulnerable, they're going to freak out and turn into warrior women and maybe shoot you in the head with an arrow or something like that. They can be prone to substance abuse, as I said before, so can Apollos, because they're so lonely. They're the social sign, that duality of that. Apollos and Artemises bring the social aspect and tribalism to human race, to all races. We are the ones that want family, want people to be included. So going down the list to Athena. So Athena was the goddess of war strategy. She was also the goddess of knowledge, and she was actually the goddess of weaving too. She and her archetype represents intelligence, teachers, that erudite skill and ambition. What most of us experience Athena's as is the cold, scary science teacher kind of thing. My mom's an Athena, and my high school chemistry teacher was an Athena as well, and they're the kind of women who say there are stupid questions. And that's just who they are. They value intellect and knowledge, but their downside is that they are also extremely emotional. They're brought up, and their archetype is brought up to value non-emotion, to value rationality instead of love and compassion. But a lot of the times they get extremely mean when they can't express their selves fully, when they can't express that emotion. On their duality sense, their pair is Demeter. So where Athena is the goddess of intelligence, Demeter is the goddess of compassion. In the pantheon, she's actually the goddess of, here we have a question, hold on. How do we know which archetype is ours? So I am doing some readings tomorrow from noon until 8 o'clock at night. I have a schedule list, so if you want to message me, I can do a reading for you. I also can do some by, if you send me a picture of you, I can read your eyes for you as well. So back to Demeter's. Athena is the goddess of intellect. Demeter is the goddess of like warmth and compassion. In the pantheon, she is actually the goddess of the hearth and the harvest. So Demeter represents a mother. She represents a new harvest. She represents that warm light. And Demeter people are the earth mamas. They're Mother Earth, really. They are the most compassionate people you've ever met. My dad is one of the kindest men I've ever met in my entire life. And pure compassion. My bonus mom, my mom's best friend, is a Demeter. So as you can see, Athenas surround themselves with Demeters. They are compassion. They get to know people. They look right in their eyes. They know humans as a race. And this is where they pair together. So Athenas are cold and callous when they are missing compassion. Demeters can get very petty because they are doormats. Their downside is that they're doormats. If you know a Demeter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They let people walk all over them. They put themselves on the front porch, and they let people wipe their shoes all over them and just walk inside and leave them out in the rain. They're those kind of people, which is beautiful, which is what we need. They bring the world compassion. That's their energy. But Athenas balance them out by saying, this is not okay. This is not rational, right? So Athena and Demeter are the brain and heart, basically. And as all of the metaphysical people know, we have to connect our third eye with our heart chakra, right? So after that, we have Hephaestus, which is a weird word. It is Hephaestus. He's also known as Vulcan, which is a little easier to hear and understand. That was the Roman name for him. He's the god of the forge in Greek mythology. He created Zeus's lightning bolts. He created all of the gods' weapons, Artemis's bow, Ares' spear. But he also created all of the beautiful things too, like Apollo's lyre, which is a little harp. He created all of the beautiful things and also amazing weapons of Olympus. So in this, he's extremely creative, but he's also extremely protective. So to understand Hephaestus a little better, you have to know a little about him. He is the son of Zeus and Hera, who are the king and queen of the gods, and he is deformed. Is the best way to put it. So if anybody knows Greek mythology, everybody are siblings. The main pantheon, they are all siblings and they're all married to each other. So a little incest in there. Hera and Zeus were siblings, and they only had Hephaestus as a son. He was supposed to be the prince of Olympus. They were the king and queen. But when he turned out deformed, Hera, who's the goddess of perfection, basically, tossed him from Mount Olympus and abandoned him. So he was raised by the Cyclopes, or the Cyclops, who were the blacksmiths for the gods. So he came back with a grudge whenever he grew up. He was a full-fledged god, and he forged, as he learned how to with the Cyclopes, chains to chain his mother to her throne, to basically get back at her. So they have a little bit of mommy issues there. He is the kind of man, and Hephaestuses are the kind of men who have nice guy syndrome, as we call it. Basically, they are sweet, kind, protective, the kind of men you want to be the fathers of your children, but because they are nice guy syndrome, who affects nice guys the best, the kind of scum of the earth women. And because they already have kind of a mommy issue, they get extremely mean and resentful and angry with life when they feel too much, because they are extremely feeling men. They can hold on grudges very long. They can get very internal, and they can not get past their own feelings to the point where they can get a little narcissistic. But on the bonus side of Hephaestus is they're extremely good men. They are creative, they're protective, they're very female-minded men. You can see why they get a little crazy. And they are very, very good fathers and protectors. So after Hephaestus, in alphabetical order, we have Hera. So Hera is the queen of the gods. She's Juno in Roman mythology. And she is the goddess of marriage, of childbirth, and of women. You can hear the similarities between Artemis. Artemis stole those things from Hera. And Artemis and Apollo are also the bastard children of Hera's husband Zeus. So there was a little bit of grudges there. I look more into Greek mythology for that. Because she's the goddess of perfection, like I call it, she is the kind of woman who is extremely intimidating to be around. She is the more masculine mother, so a mama bear type. They are the warmest, beautifulest women I have ever met. But they're also extremely scary. They are warm to their family as long as they can keep a grasp on reality. And as long as no one harms their family. They usually have problems with marriages. You'll see a lot of similarities in the archetypes' lives as we have with our mythological lives. And she, on the downside, can be spiteful and over-emotional. So Heras are usually very, top boss kind of ladies. But whenever someone scorns them, they can be like Satan incarnate, right? Like Mama Bear will slash your throat in a second, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. So next on the list is Hermes. Hermes was the god of messengers. He was the messenger god. He carried messages between the gods and goddesses. He was the god of greed and manipulation, and also the god of mischief. So anybody who loves Loki on Thor, there you go. He's Loki. Hermes are politicians. Pretty much every single politician is either an Athena, Hermes, something or other. They value a lot of things that Athenas value. Intelligence. They're extremely motivational. If they use their powers for good, which is manipulation really, they would be the best motivational speakers you've ever met. But they can be extremely manipulative and greedy. They usually go bad. They struggle a lot with this kind of world, this soft kind of world. Yeah, everybody knows what Hermes are. They're just the manipulators. They're the politicians. So the next on the list is Persephone. So Persephone was Demeter's daughter in the pantheon. She was the goddess of springtime and flowers, but became the queen of the underworld when Hades kidnapped her. So Persephone, she is a very complex kind of woman. She is both the goddess of death and of life, of spring and rebirth. So I like to call her the goddess of cycles. Persephones themselves as an archetype is extremely centered on this. Persephones are very flippant people. If you know any Aquariuses, it's the same kind of energy. They're rebels without causes. They move through life, they move through situations, and they move through people very fast because that's the way their brains work. They live in cycles, and that's extremely hard for people to understand most of the time. But they are that spark of life and that ability to change. When Persephones go bad, They are extremely, extremely manipulative and flaky, and the opposite of the good spark of life cycles, the bad spark of life cycles. So a lot of Persephones use drugs because they're trying to act more normal like other people, where they really can't because they live in a completely different world than us most of the time. And then last we have Zeus. So Zeus was the king of the gods. He was the god of lightning and thunder, of power, of men. Zeuses are extremely protective and kind men. They're very masculine, and they are like the father figure. They are the god of power, so they will always wander. Zeus was an adulterous man-whore. He cheated on his wife too many times to count, had so many children across the lands, like it's just ridiculous. Some Zeuses do that. Some Zeuses are man whores or woman whores if they are women. Some of them are just constantly seeking something. They are constantly seeking the answer to life. They're constantly seeking the answer that will fill them up inside. Some of them seek power. Some of them seek knowledge. If you relate too highly to two archetypes, which ones do you rate too highly to, Miss Carolyn? And then I'll answer that question for you. But Zeuses are that power, and when you think of power, that is always searching for more. So, going to the duality, I talked about it a little bit at first, but Apollo and Artemis are the social sign. You can see light and dark in them. They represent the sun and the moon. So where the sun shines light and gives light to others, that's where Apollo does. And where Artemis and the moon reflect light, Artemises are mirrors. They mirror back what people give them, what energy they are, and it's all a defense mechanism because you can't touch the sun. It's too hot. And if you're putting a mirror in front of your face, nobody is looking behind the mirror, right? You can be amazing counselors that way. That's why I do this. That's why I'm a great reader, because I don't like to be vulnerable, which Facebook Live has me pretty vulnerable. But it makes it so that we can reflect back your dark side, and Apollos reflect back your light side. So the other pairing, Athena and Demeter, we talked about that. The brain and the heart, emotion and intellect, basically the warring two. Aphrodite and Aries, we have the divine masculine, divine feminine, and then Hera and Zeus. I didn't talk about those yet. So Hera and Zeus are a duality. They were married. They represent contraction and expansion. This is another kind of duality that a lot of people don't talk about. Contraction is Hera, so Hera pulls people in. She protects them. If you look at her ruling strategy, she makes sure that everyone is safe and controlled, right? And if things are out of control, out of her control, she loses it a little bit. Expansion, where his beautiful wife was control, Zeus was like, I don't care, let them run wild. Let's give them the whole earth to run wild on. That is expansion. That is constantly learning things. Hephaestus and Persephone are the other duality. Hephaestus is order, a lot like Hera. Hephaestus creates things. He creates them in a very mechanical way. He is both a blacksmith, a very masculine thing, and also a creator, a very feminine thing. So when you combine those two, you create order. He created beautiful things that had nice, slick lines, that had beauty in them, and also a purpose. That's a very big thing. So I'm an artist, not an Artemis too, but I am a creative, and I don't create things that you can use. I create things that are like, oh, that's pretty. So that is not a Hephaestus. Hephaestus create practical things like tools, but they're also beautiful. Like when you look at a sword, when you look at a bow, it's a practical thing, but it's also something of beauty. So Persephones are chaos. So we have order and chaos. So chaos is where Persephone leads, the underworld. I don't believe that the underworld is a very scary place. I believe it's just something different than here, the beyond the veil kind of thing. And that chaos is the cycles. People are afraid of cycles. We're terrified of cycles. So Persephone and the one before that, Hera. Okay, so Persephone's and Hera's, real fast, they are extremely similar. Either if you're a Persephone, you're going to graduate to be a Hera, or if you're a Hera, you're going to graduate to be a Persephone. They're extremely similar females because Hera and Persephone are both the queens of their realm. So Hera is the queen of the upper world, and Persephone is the queen of the lower world. So to differentiate between if you're a Hera or a Persephone, ask yourself if you value your family more or you value your own personal freedom. Because if you value your family more and those around you more, you're a Hera. And if you value your own personal freedom more, it is a Persephone, if that helps you answer your question. And so, where we see the Persephone again, that chaos. Persephones are very, I don't want to say self-centered because that's like a bad thing, but they are very self-centered because they are constantly in a separate world. The only people that they can really associate with is other Persephones because they're the ones that kind of speak their level. Persephones have a lot of problems with Demeters, and that's because of their history in the pantheon. Persephone is Demeter's daughter. And there's a lot of resentment there. But other than that, Persephones are really just, they're a wonder, really. If you noticed, I didn't talk about Hades, which is another very prominent god in the pantheon. That's because I've never seen a Hades on this world. I have never seen Hades' eyes before. Lucy, my spirit guide, tells me that Hades does exist. But when you think about that, Hades was the god of the underworld. He created the underworld. And if this is the upper world, of course Hades doesn't live here. And that's why Persephones are so effed up, because they are supposed to be down there with Hades. So Hades, I have no idea what they're like because I've never got to meet one. They, I believe, are probably like dream people. The dream world could even be the Hades world, and we don't know it. But Hades was extremely like Zeus as well. So there's a lot of things like you didn't notice that I didn't put Poseidon, the god of the sea. That's because Poseidon was a Zeus, guys. Zeus and Poseidon were the same guy. They were just different people acting out the archetype. They both represent power and that wanderlust ambition. You'll see in a lot of pantheons that a Zeus character is at the top because he didn't know what else to heckin' do, really. Like, it was like something new to do. The only exception is that in the Norse pantheon, Odin would be an Athena, not a Zeus. Thor would be the Zeus. So on that subject, I believe that the polytheistic gods were really people, or they were really the energies that people saw. So they were very influential and fast-acting people who decided that they would be worshipped, or that they were teaching about the gods and like a primitive people thought that it was different. And in that, we can see that we are the gods, guys. We're the gods. Any Artemis that is living out there, any Apollo, any Athena, any of them, we are that god or goddess. And when you realize that, because we are that god or goddess, because we have that spark, the other spark within us is the Great Spirit. It is the all. And because of that, we can choose to follow the right path. Okay, can we change archetypes as we grow and mature, or once an Athena, always Athena? That's a really good question. So, we will always be the archetype we were born into. Our eyes will always be that. But the trick is that you can ascend. So I know a lot of people who their eyes might read an Apollo, but they act like an Athena. And that's because either in their past life or this life, they are learning how to be an Athena. They are moving forward. And that's the point. So there's 13 out there. There's 13 archetypes total. our goal is to move up all of them. Most of us are still stuck in the first one. I'm still stuck in my first one. I'm an Artemis. I'm probably like middle-aged. I'm not even close, guys. But the point is to move up and to continue to move forward. So I'm a Libra. The energy of that associates with Athena. My mother's an Athena. I would assume that I am trying to move towards Athena, which is beautiful because the counterbalance of an Artemis would be pretty much an Athena. It would be calming the F down and stopping all of the emotional nonsense and being more rational. So somebody, Beth on here, said, I've always loved the Greek mythology. You've made me want to go back and reread and research more. Everyone should do that because if you send me pictures, on a side note, if you don't want a full reading to know about your archetype, you just want to know what you are so you can research the god or goddess, you can Facebook Messenger me, or if you have me on Instagram at Tay the Lion Queen, you can message me a picture of yourself and I will tell you what archetype you are based on your eyes. On those pictures, try to make them look like you. So like if you're smiling or doing something that you love, that helps me a lot because sometimes I can't see them that well if you're not being you in the picture. But if you do want a reading, I'll be doing them all day tomorrow and all day Sunday from noon to 8. So message me because I do have a schedule on those. You can message me with the time you want and I can see if I'm already taken. Or you can see what time works best for you, things like that. I will tell you the archetype readings are going to be $30. I normally do them for $40 because we're doing virtual ones and because the coronavirus is out there, we're just going to do $30. I also do soul drawings and stuff, which you can message me or things like that. Ask about it on my page. So if you do want to know anything like that, you can just message me there. Are there any other questions before we start shutting this down? Because I am outside in our high tunnel on the organic farm that I live on, and we are getting dark. So I'll wait for a minute to see if there's any questions coming up. Oh, any Apollos and Artemises out there? If you feel like you are alone, if you feel like nobody understands you or knows you, just know that it's because you're hiding half of yourself. You're hiding half of yourself that you don't feel is worthy or open to others. Any Aries or Aphrodites out there, the big takeaway from that is that you need to own your own strengths. Okay, so someone said, my personal experience with Hades is that he is actually surprisingly caring and compassionate, but very quiet and withdrawn. He's a watcher. For most, he's almost paternal. That's very right. I would agree. So Hades is a very protective sign. The way he deals with Persephone and the underworld is he would be an extremely compassionate man, which is kind of like lame that we don't get to see him here because he lives in a different place. But yes, I totally agree with you. All right. Do we have any other questions? Oh, to the Persephone Hera woman. I would guess that if you're questioning it, you're probably a Hera. And Hera's main thing is you need to know that you are a powerful lady, a powerful, beautiful woman. And Hera is that dark queen. She is amazingly beautiful. She is powerful. And people think you're intimidating because people don't recognize your energy. So if you feel that you are intimidated by someone, one of my great teachers taught me this. If you're intimidated by someone, it's because your power recognizes their power and it matches it. So how many times are we intimidated by people? That means that not very many people match your power. And that is so sad. We need to make sure that we're talking to the people who intimidate us, who can teach us things, because some of the greatest teachers is like the people who match our power. So, oh yes, you should take off your glasses for the photos, because sometimes there's like that reflection. Anything that would obstruct your eyes, I'm really just looking at your eyes the most. And the way I'll do the readings is either, which would work best so that I can talk to you about stuff too, is either a messenger or Skype or FaceTime. So I think that is about it. I will show you guys this beautiful sunset that we're having here at Smiling Dog Farm, and then I will turn you over to the next speaker, and I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend, and hope to hear your messages, and hope to have a lot of readings from you. So here's this beautiful sunrise out in southwestern Missouri, and our beautiful high tunnel where we're producing all kinds of wonderful food. And contact lenses, real fast, they should be fine. As long as I can see the colors of your eyes, you're all good. So is there any other questions before I hang this up? You can message me through my Facebook page, or I will drop a link, and right in the comments of this video will be my cell phone number, but the best way to message me is probably going to be my Facebook page. Alright, I hope you guys have a beautiful night and have wonderful readings and things, all of this virtual fair. Stay safe out there with all the corona, social distancing, all of that. If you're an essential worker like I am, I work for Target, make sure that you're staying safe, and I hope everyone has a beautiful night.